Welcome to Land a House. I'm Seth. If you're interested in building a do-it-yourself twin-size bed frame, then continue watching. The things you're going to need for this build are 5 8-foot 2x4s and 5 8-foot 2x6s. You're also going to want some stain or some paint. In my case, I'm using the Minwax 271 gray stain. And you're also going to need the metal legs. Now, if you buy these metal legs from Lowe's, Home Depot, Ace Hardware, they're going to be well over $100. But if you use the links in the description down below to Amazon, you can buy these for 30 bucks. So if you want to save a lot of money, then check out those links in the description down below. Here's the cut list for this bed frame. The first one is 2 boards at 75.5 inches, and that's going to be the sides. You've got 2 boards at 78.5, and that's going to be the support runners up underneath the bed. You've got 2 at 41.5 inches, and that's going to be the headboard and the footer. And then you've got 10 slats cut at 38 inches. That's where the 2x4s come into play. If you want to use 1x material, go right ahead. I like 2x4s because they're oftentimes a little bit less expensive. My local lumber yard purchases lumber that has blue ends on it, so I'm going to cut that off so that it will make it easier to stain this gray. First, I'm going to cut 2 boards at 75.5. Just make my mark right there at 75.5. The next 2 boards need to be 78.5. I now have the 5th 2x6, and I want to cut 2 boards at 41.5 inches. So marking that right there. Let's talk about the slats real quick. I'm using 2x4s. You can definitely use 1x6s or whatever you decide to go with. Now, with these, if you have a box springs, you probably only need about 4 or 5 of them. So you might get by with just buying 2 boards and cut them to the 38 inch. But for me, I'm going to use one of those expanding mattresses you buy in a box, and no box springs. So check your mattress manufacturer's warranty. You may be able to get by with a 2-inch gap or a 2.5 inch. For me, I'm actually going to have more of a 4-inch gap because I am not that concerned about my mattress warranty. But check your warranty before you space your slats in your bed. So just pick out whatever size slat distance you need. So let's go ahead and cut these 5 2x4s to 38 inch. All the cuts are done. Now, if you don't have a saw like I do, for a small fee, your lumber yard or Lowe's and Home Depot will make the cuts for you. So keep that in mind if you are going to be doing this without a saw. In order to keep this wood from splitting whenever I put screws into it, I'm going to pre-drill. So I'm going to be doing a hole on both sides of each slat. I'm also going to be putting several holes in the end of the runners and also a couple along the length here. And then lastly, on the header and footer board, which are these shorter ones, I'm going to do 3 different pre-drill holes here on both sides, and that's going to keep this from splitting, hopefully. So the boards that do not need to have any pre-drill holes in them are the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those out, and we won't have to do anything to those at the moment. I like to use these Torx head screws for my build, and it looks like a 7/64 or an 1/8 drill bit is going to be good for the pre-drill hole. So that's what I'm going to use here in this build. These slats are going to be resting on a 2x6, so there is plenty of room to work with. So I'm just going to step back about 1.5 inches and pre-drill here, but anywhere between 1.5 inches and 2 or 3 inches is fine. So just placing right here in the middle. And then of course flipping these around to do the other side as well. Now on the header and footer boards, keep in mind that the board it's going to be butting up against is only 1.5 inches. So somewhere around the 3/4 inch in from the end of the board is going to be ideal. So I'm going to go down somewhere around 1 inch at the 3/4 inch. And I'm just going to do 3 of those. Flip around and do the same. Now on the 2 rails, I'm going to put pre-drill holes here on the end, just 2 of them. And then something a little bit different, I'm going to go along this edge over here and do just a few pre-drill holes, and this will attach to the edge of the bed. So let's just put one every, let's say, 1.5 feet. So move down here a bit. And then just move on down another 1.5 feet. And this just helps a little bit more with the support of this frame. Once again, I'm staying within about 1 inch to 3/4 inch from the edge. After you get all those done, flip it around to the other end and do 2 more pre-drill holes down here. Now that I have all the boards pre-drilled, I'm going to use an orbital sander to make sure all the corners are rounded over and that each surface is smooth. Now you don't have to do the slats because they're going to be hidden, and also the bottom side of the runners don't have to be sanded either. So I'm going to go through here. It's going to take a while. I'm going to get everything sanded down. Having made several of these bed frames, I like to round over all the edges, and that way if you bump into it, there's no really sharp points it's going to dig into your shins. Sanding is done and everything looks nice. These are the header and footer boards. I'm going to be staining all of the surfaces of those. And on the sides, you could leave the inside unstained, but I'm going to go ahead and stain all of those as well. And when it comes to the runners on the bottom, all I'm going to do is about 2 or 3 inches of the end. And then the side that has the screw hole on it, I'm going to make sure I have that stained and overlap 1 inch or so that if it shows any, it will be all the same color. So like I said before, I'm going to be using this Minwax wood finish, and it is the classic gray 271. So let's go ahead and get these stained. Let's talk about the metal legs for this build. I've got some floor flanges. It's a 1/2 inch and it's got the 3 holes, and it works out pretty good for this. I've also got 6-inch black metal pipe. Now you can get different schedule size of this, but for me, I went with the 6-inch, and it's coated so it's not going to be sticky or runny. And basically to put these together, you just screw them in here. And you can tighten them down like that. Now, in order to save your floor, you can put some felt up under one side. It's going to be touching the floor. I've never had a problem with scratching, and I've worked with several of these frames, but it's up to you whether you want to do that or not. So, I need to have 6 of these total, and so there are the first 2. I'm just going to simply take one flange, put it on one side, tighten that down, take another flange, put it on the other side, and tighten that down until I have 6 of these total. Now, be sure to use the links in the description down below if you would like to get these and save a bunch of money by not buying from a big box store. I've let the stained wood sit outside for about a week, and so the smell of that stain has gone away. It's time to get this assembled. I'm here in my son's room. Let's go ahead and get all this here on the ground and put it together. When I lay these out, I'm actually going to find the boards that I want on the top to be facing down, and I want the prettier side to be facing out. So for instance, this board right here has got some missing material. So I am going to put that on the outside like that, but that piece facing up, because we're gonna build the bottom first and then we're gonna flip it over. All right, so I want this side right here to be the prettier side, so I'm gonna put it down. And then likewise with the headboard, I'm gonna find the piece that's less pretty and put that facing in and down. So let's do that right here. And on this last piece right here, let's see which side looks nicer. That one looks pretty good. It's got one crack on it. I don't know if it really matters on that one. This is the footer board here. I'm gonna butt that up against the side. Now we have pre-drilled the 3 holes over here. And so I'm gonna use some 3.5-inch Torx head screws and my impact driver to get this assembled. Get that started real quick, and then I want to make sure I line up the edges so they're flush there. That is fairly important because if you don't do that, the bed mattress may not fit. So let's go ahead and get this installed. Now I'm going to sink that in just a little bit, not too far though, because I don't want any of the wood to crack. Yeah, have to pick this one up just a little bit because it's close enough to the ground. Very good. The footer is now attached to the sides. I'm going to repeat those steps over here on the header board. Now I have the header and footer done. I'm going to put the runners under here, and these will go on the bottom like this, and I'm making sure that I've got the stained side facing out. Line those up flush. Then we're going to be putting some 3-inch screws in here, so not quite as long as the others, but should be more than enough to get this into position. Make sure everything is lined up nice and flush. And I'm going to use these 3-inch screws. Just like before, I'm sinking them in maybe an 1/8 inch just to make sure they are not sticking out. Now, as you recall, we put pre-drill holes along the side. So I'm going to do some more screws in there as well. Now that I have both of the runners installed, it's time to get these metal legs in. So in order to prevent your toes from kicking them all the time, I'm going to push them all the way back from the sideboard. And then let's take a measurement here from the header or footer at 4 inches. And that's where I'm going to put the other edge. And that should just hopefully allow us not to be hitting the toes too much. Now I've got a extension here on my impact driver, and that can help me get these 1.25-inch screws in from the side a little bit. If you don't have an extension on your impact driver, you can simply unscrew the pipe from the flange, line this up, screw it down, and then thread your pipe back into position. It's just a personal preference for me to already have them together like this. This runner is 78.5 inches, so I want to find 39.25, and that's going to be where I'm going to put the middle leg. So right here is where I want that. And I'm just going to once again push this leg to to the back there, and then I can put my screws in here at the midpoint. Now that all the legs are installed, it's time to flip this over. It's not too heavy, but just be careful that you don't strain your back. Okay, looking nice. So let's go ahead and get the slats in next. The first 2x4 slat is going to be pushed all the way up against the footer board, and then I'm using these 2.5-inch screws to lock it into place. I'm not a big fan of slats scooting around, and that's why I'm using the screws. Now, like I said at the very beginning of the video, if you want to have less space in here, you'll have to get a couple more slats. But for me, I'm going to do a 4.5-inch gap between one and the other. So I'm just going to measure out here 4.5 inch. And then I'm just going to put more screws in there to lock that down. And that completes the assembly of this twin size bed frame. It's very easy to build and very sturdy. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have some comments, leave those down below. And remember, if you're going to be buying those metal legs, then use the Amazon links in the description down below and save a ton of money. I'm Seth with Land to House, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.